Hello everyone, welcome to another Narc Survivor live video. The narcissist is going to struggle without you. Because here's what you got to understand about narcissists. I mean, think about this. We're talking about someone who's self-absorbed, they lack empathy, they're all about themselves. A person like that, they target someone who is the easiest to deal with. Someone who they're going to have no problem with at all. They're not going out of their way looking for someone who's extremely difficult. Someone who's going to go against them. Someone who's going to cause problems for them. No one is looking for that. And especially with narcissists, they're specifically looking for someone who's going to do everything that they want them to do. Someone who is moldable. Someone who will make things go their way. Someone who will do whatever they want. That's what they're looking for. So if they couldn't make things work with you, they're not going to make things work with anyone. Because I know many of you, you're empathic, you're flexible, you're hardworking, you're disciplined, you're just genuinely good people. And they could have worked things out with you, they could have managed you. And I can tell you, I manage thousands of you every day, and I've had no problem with you at all. And you don't have any problem with me. You understand me very well what I'm talking about. I'll explain these situations. It's the narcissist that is the issue because they're maladaptive. They're not able to be adjusted or changed to fit the situation or the person. It's just all about them. There's no compromise. So for that reason, they're definitely going to struggle without you. They're really going to struggle. Just think about everything that you were doing for them, all of the things that you were providing to them. Maybe you were giving them money, a place to stay, you were cleaning their clothes, you were taking care of the kids, you were doing all of this. And all the while they were complaining about it, they were saying they wanted more, they were saying they wanted to do something else as well. They were never satisfied, they were never happy. I mean, if you're still with a narcissist, you can see they're struggling right now. They've already got problems, even while they're dealing with you and you're doing everything for them. So literally, whatever's on their mind, whatever the first thing is that comes to their mind that they want you to do, you're there ready to do it. You're at their beck and call. When they say jump, you say how high. And they've got a problem with that. They can't deal with that. So if they can't even deal with you, how are they going to deal with anything in life? How are they going to manage with anything? Of course they're not. It's just never going to happen. It's just never going to work that way for them. It's just they have these fantasies in their minds. They envision this person who is just going to be so compliant, so submissive, and they're just going to do whatever they want, whenever they want to do it. Because they don't enjoy connection. They don't enjoy a real relationship. I mean, part of it is when you do things for the other person as well. And when you try to make them happy, and when you focus on their separate life outside of you, their purpose as well, so that it's not just all about you, because that's a big part of the problem, is that when everything is all about you, you lack empathy, and then you can never find that satisfaction. The satisfaction comes from bringing in another person and making it about them as well and their needs, instead of it just being all about you. As with a narcissist, it's always all about them or their false self. It's all about just sacrificing everyone and everything for the false self so that they can feel better. So all of these things that you were doing for them, all of the things that you were providing to them, they weren't happy with any of that, and in fact it was very intimidating to them. The more you did, the better you got. The more you were on everything, the more that they just fell back and felt intimidated by it. They were fearful because of it. And then that's what made them want to destroy you, because on one hand, it's like they wanted more from you. They wanted you to do more for them, to make them happy. But then the more that you were doing, and the more unequal and unbalanced it became, it made them reflect on themselves and how they're really not capable of doing anything. So then they wanted to destroy you for that reason. And this is how we know that even if they do find someone else who can do all of the things that you were doing for them, and tolerate all of the abuse, all of the problems. Even if they find someone who's able to do all of that, which I can tell you is highly unlikely, because they target you very carefully. They were looking for the most moldable, flexible person that they could possibly find. So even if they do find another person like that, you should already know exactly where it's going to go. They're going to end up destroying them. They're going to end up ruining them just as they did with you. Because no matter what you do for them, it's never enough. No matter how much you put up with from them, in their minds it's like, you could always put up with a bit more. And maybe then they could be satisfied, because they never actually realize that the reason why they can't be happy or satisfied is because of the problem that exists within them. It hasn't actually got anything to do with you. And that's why there's just nothing you can say to them. You can't get through to them, because they don't ever want it to be about them. If it's going to be about them, it should be about what they're getting or how great they are. All the while, they're not even doing anything for you. You're doing everything for them and they're not reciprocating anything back. And in fact, all that's actually happening is they are posing as a hindrance to the progress in your life. They're holding you back. They're keeping you down. You could be so much greater, so much more if you were not around them. And many of them, they know that. That's why they sabotage you. That's why they keep you down. And that's also where they try to dominate every second of your day to make it all about them. Because they know, yes, when you're investing all of your time and energy into them, nothing's going to come out of that, because they're a piece of crap. If you take that and you invest it back in yourself, now you're going to create something. Now things are going to get good. Because you do have value, they don't. And honestly, just look at all of the views on these videos. Look at all of the comments. Look at how many people have tried. Look at how many of the most moldable, adaptable people in the world have been around these narcissists. Invested everything they had into them. Tried to become everything that they thought they wanted them to be. And look at how that ended up. It didn't go anywhere. And that's because not only is there no value there, there's no value in being a narcissist. There's no value in just making everything all about yourself. Not only that, but that's not the way it's meant to work anyway. You're meant to invest in yourself. You're meant to invest in your own character. You're meant to build up your own value. And that's the whole point. That's why we have our own separate body, our own separate mind, brain, our own separate qualities. We have all of these things for a reason, because we're meant to work on them. We're meant to build them up. We're not meant to just neglect ourselves, neglect our body, our mental health, and just direct all of our energy, attention, and focus onto someone else. We're not meant to do that. But that is exactly what they want you to do. They want it to be all about them, and the reason why is because how can they direct all of their time, energy, attention, effort, and focus onto themselves when they abandoned themselves a long time ago and created a false self? How can they do that if they did that? They can't. And that's why they have to seek out a sacrifice. They've got to have someone to surrender everything, to sacrifice themselves over to them. Because essentially, these people have no soul. They've got nothing that they can generate from within. No love, no kindness, no understanding, no empathy, no compassion. They've got nothing. And that is why they've got to take everything from you. They've got to take everything you got. They've got to drain the life out of you. They've got to make you miserable. They're going to make your life hell. And in the end, they've got to discard you and they've got to find someone else. That's what they've got to do. That's what a person has to do when they abandon their true selves a long time ago. That's just the only way that it can go. But that is how you know that they will struggle without you. It will be a very miserable, frustrating experience for them. They're not going to find any enjoyment in that. Although yes, you may look on their social media and it may look like they're having such a great time without you, as they're flaunting this new source who's meant to be so much better than you. Or at least that's what they want you to think, that's what they want you to believe. But the reality is very different. It's nothing like that for real. And what's actually going on is they're just portraying this fantasy of how they like things to be. Because, and just thinking about this on the spot, I think to the outside they want to make it look like as though you are two separate people with two separate lives, and as though you do kind of have the time to focus on yourself and build yourself up, and you're also there to complement their image. But then behind the scenes, no, it's actually everything revolves around them and they don't do anything, and you're just having to sacrifice yourself for them. So that's really what's going on behind the scenes. And despite all of that, they're still miserable, they're still not happy with you. So that's kind of how they want it to look like. Because, let's keep it real, it's not really a good image, is it? It's not really flattering. If everyone sees you breaking your back, doing all of the things that you have to do for them, I mean, that does not make them look good. That makes them look very lazy. That makes them look completely incompetent, as though they can't even take care of themselves. That's how that looks if they broadcast that on social media. So that's why they typically leave that one out. And instead they make it look like it's two independent, autonomous beings who are coming together to complete each other. And in all honesty, that's a great image. That's how it should be. But that's not how it is. But many of us who have been involved in these situations, we know that that's not how it is at all. That's not how it goes with them. And instead, it is, as aforementioned, that you're really just a sacrifice for the narcissist. You have to sacrifice yourself for them, and even when you do that, even when you turn your personality inside out and you try to be everything that they want you to be, they're still not satisfied with that. And if anything, that makes them even more mad. Because it's like, oh, you can do that, you can do everything, but they can't. They can't even take care of themselves. So then that intimidates them and it makes them want to destroy you. And then, just to try and wind you up even more, then they go off with the new source and act like they're better than you. And it's like, hold on a minute, you just did all of this work, you did everything for them, you changed everything about yourself for them, you sacrificed everything, and you even took all of the blame. And then they go off and they just find someone else who's meant to be just instantly better than you. And I know it can be painful when you see these things. I know it can hurt. But you've given it all, you've given your life, you did everything you could to try and make this person happy. And then they go and do that to you. Of course, I know it's not nice to go through that. But what you've got to understand is that they're very insecure. They feel inadequate and they will do anything to make themselves feel better. So that's why things go that way. But honestly, they're not happy, they're completely miserable. Just think about it, if they picked you out, the most moldable, adaptable person they could find, they don't target difficult people. They target people who they know by getting around them, things are going to go their way. Those are the types of people that they like to get around and turn them into a source of supply. But then no matter how they try to twist and turn you and mold you into something, it just doesn't make a difference. You're never going to be enough to complete them because they're not enough for themselves. And they're never going to be enough for themselves. I know how they like to project it outwards and they act as though They meet this perfect person and now they're complete, now they're happy. Even outside of a narcissistic relationships, it doesn't work that way. You must first complete yourself. You must first build up your own self-esteem. You must practice self-love. You must develop the qualities and characteristics, the tools that you need to be able to sustain a healthy relationship. And that's just the only way that it's ever going to work. And this is something that narcissists don't want to accept. They don't want to realize. Because the last thing they want to do is have to go within. In order for them to do that, they would first have to identify that they are operating with a false self. And of course, that's not something they're going to do. Instead, they're going to discredit you after they've groomed and conditioned you, after they've molded you into whatever it was they wanted you to be. Then they're going to discredit you. They're going to say you're fake. They're going to say you're not about anything. And then they use that to boost themselves up and make themselves feel more real. Because then there's that black and white mentality. If they discredit you, then they feel more secure in themselves. But actually, it should be the opposite. When you are dealing with someone who is real, genuine, and sincere, they're not going to feel comfortable. If you're being discredited, if you're feeling vulnerable, if you're not so sure about yourself, that's not going to feel good for them. And that's exactly how it feels for me. It makes me feel very uncomfortable when I see people being sabotaged, when I see them being discredited, because I've got high self-esteem. I love myself. I practice self-love. I feel secure within myself. So to see people who are insecure, have low self-esteem and are not feeling good about themselves, that makes me feel very uncomfortable. I don't like how that makes me feel. But I don't get angry about it. I work with it because I want you to improve. I want things to get better for you. And I do apologize for all of the laughter in the background. A group of people just came behind me after I started filming. Otherwise, I would have moved to a different spot already. But we are already at the point in the video when I normally move to a different location, so it's okay. But yeah, I can assure you they will be struggling without you. There's just no ifs and buts about it. Or no ifs, buts and maybes. They will be struggling without you. They will be having a hard time. And another thing to look for, another thing that you can identify is, why is it so important to them? Why is it such a big deal? I mean, it's like the Joker out of Batman. Do they need to do they need to get a knife and just like cut open a smile in their faces so they're just smiling all the time? It's like they're always having to smile and laugh and everything's so exaggerated. They're always having fun. They're always having a great time. And the person they're with is so wonderful. They're so amazing. They're so much better than you. And you're so horrible. You're so bad. It's like a little kid talking. It's a black and white mentality. It's like, this is good. This is perfect. You're bad. You're horrible. And that's how you know that it's all fake. It's all unrealistic. It's all nonsense. Because the world does not work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. And honestly, the people who are genuinely happy, the people who just generally feel good inside, they don't feel the need to have to prove it to anyone. They don't feel the need to do that. People who do that are actually the most toxic, the most insecure. And they really just want to rub it in your face to make you feel insecure, to make you feel down, to make you feel like things aren't going good for you, because actually, deep down, that's how they feel about themselves, because they're constantly comparing themselves to someone else, to some other situation that they can't measure up to. And that's why they're so insecure about it, and then they project it onto you. So essentially what they do is they train you to operate the way that they do. It's like a disease, it's contagious. They try to get you to be the way that they are, to look at things the way that they do. Because misery loves company, they don't want to feel alone in that. And they see you, this bright shining light. They see how you're able to be happy. And you're so resilient you are. You did everything you could for them. You did everything you could to try and make them happy. And they kept putting you down, they kept blaming you, you kept coming back, you did more. You did more and more, you were at their beck and call. And they were just the moody, grumpy person that they are. Nothing you did was ever good enough for them. They were never satisfied. And of course, you get around them, it begins to affect your self-esteem. Then you start feeling insecure about yourself. Or you think you do, but actually what's happening is you're disconnecting from yourself. So they are projecting this false identity onto you, and that's what you feel insecure about. Because as I've said before, you can't be yourself around a narcissist. It's not possible, they won't allow it, they're so suffocating. They've got to view you as an extension of themselves. That's the only way that they can function. So, of course, after a certain amount of time, you can only be something negative in their eyes, and they expect you to identify with that so that they can feel comfortable about their false self. They gotta have that supply, they gotta have that narcissistic extension. That's the only way that they can survive. And that's what you were to them. And some of them though, some narcissists, they will move on and they will downgrade. They will find a lesser supply, but then they will convince themselves in their minds that it is grade A, that it is better than you. Although it isn't, and it may not just be that they're trying to impress you or flaunt this onto you. They may genuinely believe it themselves. They may be gaslighting themselves. They may be in denial. And they just become delusional. That's all that happens there. And if you want to go back into that fantasy, back into that matrix, it's just going to leave you feeling very confused the deeper that you go into it. And you're just going to be looking at it and wondering, how are they happy with that? After everything you were to them, after everything you provided to them, and they weren't satisfied, and then they go off and then they're happy with less. Of course, that's going to leave you feeling confused. Of course, that's going to leave you doubting yourself. And that's how you just have to accept that, yes, they're delusional. And although you may want to help, you don't have to go back and try to convince them. You don't have to try and show them that they're wrong. Just let them continue thinking that, let them get on with it. And if they really think it's that great, you will know, because then they will feel intimidated and then they will seek to destroy it. So that's how you know if it was real, if they did actually have something good, because they would have destroyed it at the end anyway. Now the way that it goes is that if they didn't have something good, if they did have something average, mediocre, then it would probably last for a long time. Those are the ones that last with narcissists. People who are not that great, people who are average, those are the ones who stay in it for the long haul. And I'm sure many of you may be listening to this and thinking, isn't that most of us who watch these videos? Weren't we those ones who stayed with them for a long time? And yeah, that's my point. Because how were we doing while we were in that relationship with them? Were we doing good? Were we the best versions of ourselves while we were with them? Of course not. While we were with them, we were average ourselves. We weren't doing good. Maybe initially, for a certain amount of time, but then once we got into the devaluation phase, things just got worse and worse. So the only way that anyone can remain around a narcissist is by going down, is by becoming average. And again, I apologize for the yelling in the background. I'm trying to just have the quietest location that I can without too much noise. But as you know, it does follow me around. And also a lot of distractions as well. Every time I look up, I always get, the people waving at me. That's the current sensitization tactic, as you know, that many narcs do. Just any kind of noise campaigns, anything that they can do to get your attention. And of course, it makes sense. Better for them to get someone else's attention rather than attend to themselves. Not much that you can do there. But as for us, that is the best thing that we can do. And actually, that's what brings us down. That's what destroys us. Is by us putting all of our attention on them. As soon as you put that attention back on yourself, you've got so much value. There's so much that you can do, so much that you can be. You could be so much greater than that. So much greater than that. And you deserve so much more than that. I mean, honestly. And they know that as well. That's why they devalue us. That's why they have to break us down. Pull us down to their level. That's why they just can't accept us as the autonomous, independent beings that we are. And they've got to have that enmeshment because of that intimidation factor that comes along with it. And I know many of you as empaths, you don't even see it. But for them, they're just waiting for it. They're 2 steps ahead of you with that. Because they're just thinking, when is this light going to explode and just swallow me whole? Is how they're thinking in their minds. When is it going to overpower them? And really, many of you, you are like sunlight to a vampire. That's really what you are. You blind them. You've got so much light inside of you. Seriously, I'm not just saying this to make people feel better. This is actually how it is. They're intimidated by you. They're not devaluing you because they think you're no good. Honestly, yes, there are situations where that happens. And you may see that with narcissists in restaurants, the way they treat the waiter. They can be very contemptuous, very dismissive towards them. And that's why they don't keep them as a source of supply. That's why. Because then it's genuine contempt. But with you, it's more of a strategic devaluation process just to keep you down so that they're able to control you over a long period of time. There's a big difference. There's a big difference with that. And without that control over you, they are going to struggle without you. It's going to be very difficult for them. It's going to be very challenging. Without that supply, without that food for their ego, for their very fragile, dysfunctional ego, it's going to be very challenging for them. Because also, most people in this world are not like us. They're not so kind. They're not the types of people who respect janitors just as much as they respect CEOs. A lot of people in this world, they would look down on them. They would think that they're not good. Unless, of course, they're abusers or they're fake people just like them. Then they might welcome them in, because then they feel more comfortable with them. And that's how, when you look at their family members, their friends, their social circle, they're all the same. They've all got the same type of mentality. They all have low self-esteem. They're all miserable. They all live a fake life. They all try to impress you. They all try to alienate you and make you feel like you're an outsider. And it's because they understand that you see the best in people and you believe that people could be better. Because the way you look at it, it's easy for you. It's like, if you were living their life, it's like, just give you a week, you'll make everything better. You'll improve everything. You get to work on their mental state, their finances, everything will be done. So you assume it must be so easy for them. But that's the thing, they're not like us, they're not wired like us. They are not on that level. They are not on that level at all. And that's why they got to keep you down. That's why they got to target your self-esteem. And that's also why with the fake family members and friends, they try to make you insecure around them and try to get you to prove yourself to them, because you're still falling for the illusion. You still see the best in them when there's actually no best there. So that's something we need to develop more awareness about. I mean, a lot of us, we're seeing value in things where there's no value there. There's not even any value there, and you're seeing value in it. This is a common mistake that many of us make, because just look at how long you stayed in it with the narcissist. You saw value in them, you saw potential. And what result did you get in the end? Did you profit from that? Did you get anything out of it? Did you even get the same as what you put in? No. Because they're not valuable, they're not good. And yet many of us, we make this mistake, and that's why we need to become better at identifying it. Because I can tell you, the reality is that no matter how long you stay involved with them, things aren't going to get any better. You're never going to be living the dream of the narcissist. You're never going to have a nice, peaceful home with them. And you go to work, you come home, and the narcissist is there. They've missed you after a long day at work. And there's just a sense of togetherness, peace, unity. It's never going to be like that with the narcissist. You're never going to be living the dream of them. They can't take care of you because they can't take care of themselves. I mean, we're talking about people, before we even get to physical health or finances, they can't even manage their own mental and emotional health. And before you can effectively manage anything in your life, first you've got to begin with being able to manage your mental and emotional health before anything else. And that's how you know they're not going to get very far. They're not going to get very far with that. Because the mental and emotional health, that comes first before anything. And just remember how dysregulated and erratic they were. And you as the one who was always trying to calm them down, you're always trying to figure out, what do I have to do? What do I have to say to get this person to relax? To let this person know that there's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing's going to hurt them. They're not going to be in any trouble. You would constantly think, what did you have to say or do in order for them to realize that? Because the reality is that they're still running off childhood programming, and they will always be in that state. They will always have very weak emotional and mental health, to where to them everything is a threat, everything is a problem. And this is all coming from their childhood. And it's not that you were deliberately trying to cause problems for them. They create these problems for themselves. And honestly, there's nothing that you can do to help them. Because of course what happens is they make their problems your problem. They project it onto you, they deflect their shame as a result of their inability to manage their own mental and emotional health. And that's really what this comes down to. That's what this is all about. They have an inability to manage their own mental and emotional health. And at the same time, they also don't want to seek help. They don't want to talk to a therapist. When that's really what they need to do. Because if there's a problem, you must first accept that the problem exists. And they just don't want to accept that it is them. They don't want to accept that they have issues with their mental and emotional health. So they're always dysregulated, they're always angry, they're always lashing out at people. And yet at the same time, they don't want to accept it. And many of them, it gets so bad. It gets so bad. When many of them are covert. And they're doing all of these things covertly. Simultaneously, they're acting like there's nothing wrong. And sometimes they may even act joyful. They may even be smiling. And yet, it's like they switch back and forth. You get the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's like one moment, everything's a problem. They're miserable. They just can't be happy. And then they just project it onto you. They make you feel miserable. And now you've got a reason to be angry or unhappy after what they've done to you. And then suddenly they calm down. And it's almost like you switch personalities with them. And don't worry, it's not just you. This happens with all narcissists, especially the coverts. From any part of the world, they all do this. It's what they have to do because of their internal condition, their inability to regulate themselves. They have to offload onto someone. And unfortunately, they offload onto good people. And not just good people, but people who are very strong. People who are built to last, to survive. People who are able to regulate themselves. Of course, they're not going to target someone who has an inability to regulate themselves. Someone who's crazy, dangerous. Someone who's weak. Someone who, if they just go and push their buttons over a certain amount of time, then that person is just going to go and murder them. So you can see they target good people, strong people, resilient people, people who have evolved, people who are meant to make it. Those are the types of people they target. Those are the types of people they break down. I mean, what would be the point in targeting a weak person who's not going to bounce back from that? Someone who's just going to lose their minds straight away and just lash out at them. And then it's all over right at the beginning. Of course, they're not going to target someone like that. Not just because it's not going to be a sustainable source of supply, but also narcissists are cowards. They're not going to put themselves in a dangerous situation. They're very careful, very strategic. They target people who are safe. People who they feel safe around. Safe around to be themselves and act the way that they act. Because honestly, although they twist everything and they make it seem like you're this unstable person who can't control yourself, actually it's the other way around. And you're actually a very tolerant person. Most people in this world, they wouldn't tolerate a fraction of what you tolerated. They wouldn't do a fraction of the things that you did for them. They just wouldn't do any of it. And this is really a part of the awakening process. Most people, they would have just knocked them out right at the start. Honestly, there's people out there who, when they start doing these subtle backhanded compliments, they start pushing their buttons, they start winding them up. With a lot of people in this world, they would have gotten physical. They would have gotten beat up. And that's why they pick out their targets very carefully. People who aren't going to fight back. People who are strong, but maybe silent. People who can take it. They target good people, safe people. People who we need more of in this world. Those are the ones who they target. All of the crazy, dangerous, erratic, unstable people, they leave those people alone, or they may befriend them, yet still keep them at a distance, or they may just team up with them and use them to target you. Because of course, those are the types of people they need to target you. I mean, how is it going to work if they're flying monkeys, their friends or whoever it is? That's not going to go too well if they're very calm, if they're very stable people, and they're happy, they're resilient. Then that's just not going to do anything. They have to choose people who are miserable, people who are mentally and emotionally unstable, people who are dysregulated. Because those are the ones who are going to lash out at you. So this is how you know that everything is just muddled up. They gaslight you, they switch everything around. It's actually the opposite. They're very good at gaslighting people. They gaslight themselves. Unless, of course, they are psychopaths, because psychopaths, they know what they're doing. But as for narcissists, and quite possibly sociopaths, I would say as well, most of them are just gaslighting themselves. They don't know the truth, they're not connected to reality. And that's how they're so good at gaslighting you. Well, as for psychopaths, many of them are actually very stupid. They're not actually that good at convincing people. And a lot of times they just rely on their charm. And it's because psychopaths aren't really gaslighting themselves at all. They know what the truth is. They know that they're a con. Many narcissists, they don't even know. They haven't got that type of awareness. They're not self-aware. But most psychopaths, they do know, and they learned at quite a young age that they were different. They're aware of it. But whoever it is, or whatever it is, I should say, whatever it is that you were dealing with, whether it was a narcissist or a psychopath, they're not going to get very far. They're not going to be happy without you. They weren't happy with you. They couldn't manage anything with you, and you were managing everything for them. So what are they going to do without that? What are they going to do without that source of supply that regulated them? Of course, they're not going to do much. They're not going to get very far with that. It's not going to help them. And this is why psychologists on YouTube, such as Richard Grannon and can't remember his name, but there's a psychologist from Ireland as well. He's very good. Anyway, there's a number of psychologists on YouTube who have said that narcissism is actually self-destructive. It's not good. Narcissism is not a good thing. Yes, they promote it everywhere. They act like this is the way to be, this is the best way to live. As though it's, it's such a great time to do that. Actually, no, it's the opposite. It's self-destructive. It causes them to destroy everything. They're miserable. It's not a good experience for them at all. They're never happy. The only time they ever feel like they're happy is when they're distracting themselves with some form of escapism, just to forget about their problems, to forget about how they actually feel inside. It's an absolutely miserable experience. There's nothing positive about it at all. It isn't good. And this goes for anyone who's narcissistic. Anyone you see who is self-absorbed and lacks empathy, anyone who's just all about themselves, it's self-destructive. It just doesn't go anywhere good. If you want to succeed in this life, if you want to be happy, you've got to care about other people. And when you see someone down, when you see someone hurt, as long as they're not a manipulator, you've got to be there for them, you've got to help them. That's where the happiness comes from. That's what gives that drive for you to succeed. And many of you who are feeling down right now, you can change your focus and you can feel better right now. All you have to do is just take the focus out of your head and put it into your heart. And focus on your empathy for other people, for the environment, for animals, for the world. Focus on how you want this world to be better, safer, healthier. And instantly you will feel better. You will feel more connected to yourself, because we are all a part of this collective. And that's why many people, they feel better when they have a pet or even a child, just someone who's there that you can empathize with and care for. Because although, yes, happiness does come from within, it also comes from having this empathy and compassion for other people, rather than just being all about ourselves, because we are all connected. And honestly, I've experienced that firsthand, because I've been through times in my life where honestly I was all about myself. I was only focusing on what I wanted, and I was getting a lot out of it, but it didn't make me feel better. And honestly, what makes me feel better than anything else is when I know that I am helping people, when I know that I am improving people's lives. And I can tell you that that is something these narcissists will never get to experience. And that's why they're so mad. That's why they're so miserable. But they mistake it and they assume that they have to have more, they have to consume more. And maybe then finally they will be happy. The more that they feed their ego, it just doesn't work that way. And of course, I've had that experience here on YouTube. But for me, because of my empathy for other people, I am very sensitive as an empath. I do experience a lot of fulfillment. And I remember like it was yesterday when I achieved just 100 subscribers here on YouTube. And honestly, I was so happy, I was so excited about it. And it was just a great feeling for me. And then also when I achieved 1,000 subscribers, that was amazing. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 subscribers, and then I got a YouTube plaque. It was great. But even then, even for me as an empath, that feeling only lasted for a short period of time. And then it subsided. Then I went back to feeling normal. And how I normally feel isn't really too bad anyway. But that's it. I mean, the ego always wants more. The ego will never be satisfied. And this is why they're so miserable, because they're just all about themselves. They're narcissistic. And that's just it. Because of their pride, their ego, and it builds up a lot of resistance. And it takes a lot of energy for them to do that, for them to resist, because, of course, what you resist persists. And then it just drains them and intimidates them, it overpowers them, it crushes them. And if someone wants to be that way to you, let them. Let them take that energy away from you. Because it's only going to damage you. And you deserve to be loved, you deserve to be appreciated. You deserve to be with someone who cares about you. And it's not just all about their ego and making themselves feel better. Thanks for the donation, Michelle L. I appreciate all of your donations. Honestly, I'm so grateful for them. I'm so grateful for all of your support. Marajik says now you have 188,000 subscribers. Yes, we all did it together. We all built this amazing community where we all help each other. But honestly, even just getting 100 subscribers, I was so excited about that. I couldn't believe it. And then when I had 1,000 subscribers, I was over the moon with that. I just couldn't believe that there's so many people around the world would actually care to listen to my voice. And naturally, I am actually more extroverted. I'm very outgoing, confident. That's naturally how I am. But of course, I've been targeted, and there's a lot of people who are very envious of me, of my natural leadership qualities. So I was very shy, and I didn't even show my face on YouTube for about 2 years. And I remember when I first started going live, that I received so many comments, people saying that I look young, handsome, and then other people were saying, well, one person said they thought that I was going to, that I was someone like a 50-year-old bald man. So yeah, some of the comments were quite funny, but it was just a positive overall response. And of course it feels good, you know, after all of the hate and all of the envy, all of the people who just wanted me to just feel so bad about myself, and as though I'm such a horrible person, and as though I'm just like completely worthless, even though I never felt that way about myself inside. I never felt that way at all. I was always very confident about myself. I always believed I could do anything. I always knew right from the beginning that I was going to be something, and that I was going to help millions of people. I just always knew that. But of course, when you get around most people, they're very insecure and they want to put you down. They feel inferior to you. And I'd be lying if I said that it didn't hurt. If I said that it didn't affect my confidence. Of course it did. But it's kind of more that it causes you to disconnect from yourself, because you become less than who you are. But they make you believe that you're less when you're actually so much more. So after a certain amount of time, I caught on to that, and they hate it when you realize that. They hate it when you realize that they're fake. Nothing winds them up more than that. Because it's like, what? They sold their souls, they cheated, they deceived people. And for what? They still didn't get the reaction they were looking for. They didn't get the approval, they didn't get that feeling of success and achievement. So essentially, it was all for nothing. They cheated, they conned people for no reason at all. And honestly, it's always a much better feeling to do things the right way, because again, that comes back to your empathy. The ego is once more, but no matter how much you have it, it's never going to satisfy you. It never will. And it does not matter what it is. Not unless you're already satisfied with yourself. And of course, to be satisfied with yourself, you've got to have that empathy, because otherwise you're going to feel completely worthless. And anyone would. I mean, even psychopaths, when they do the things that they do to people, it causes them to feel a lot of shame. It causes them to feel worthless. It might make them feel a little bit better shortly afterwards, but then they feel a lot of shame and they feel worse than before they did it. But then also, these days, they glamorize these kinds of things, and they make it seem like all you got to do is manipulate someone, cheat them, and then you're going to be happy and successful for the rest of your life. It never works that way. You should always do things the right way and take into consideration the effects that it may have on other people. Mr. Gu says, I care about people and they crap on me, especially if they are narcissistic. Yeah, and that's the type of experience you will have with a narcissist. It doesn't matter who you are, what you have, what you've achieved, they will crap on all of it. Honestly, their entire life is like one big crap. If they could, they would crap in this entire world. That's probably what they would do. And again, just think about that. Because even if you think something's not good, then you could just give some constructive feedback. Move things in the right direction. Why do they have to crap all over it? And again, it's because they feel intimidated. It overpowers them. They feel inferior. So then they just want to knock it down. And that reminds me from something I said in one of my earlier videos, how there's two ways to build the tallest building in town. You could actually put in the work and build the tallest building in town, or just knock down all of the other buildings that are taller than yours, so that it appears as though yours is the tallest. And that's how it is with narcissists. And they were always that way, even as children. They were the type of the child who they see. A child has built a nice sandcastle on the beach. I can't remember which video I discussed this in, one of my earliest videos. But yeah, a child could build a nice sandcastle on the beach, and the narcissist will see it and they will knock it down. And then the child will rebuild that sandcastle again. And then the narcissist will come back again and knock it down. And this is just sandcastles. I just think about it. I know it might sound silly. I mean, you know what, it's a sandcastle. Probably took a child like a minute to build. But you have to see it from the child's perspective to understand how crushing that is. And then it's the same with people's lives. They will crush your life like they crush a sandcastle on the beach, like when they were a child. And you can rebuild it, they'll come back and do it again. Of course they're going to do it again. They're not going to go off and build their own sandcastle. They're not able to do that. They can't manage their lives. And that's how they will struggle without you. Honestly, they are incompetent. They act confident, but they are incompetent. They don't know how to manage life. They don't know anything about life. Because in order to know things about life, to know how the world works, to know how society works, to know how to manage things, the first step is to accept that you know very little or you know nothing. It's likely that you know very little rather than knowing nothing at all. But first you have to accept that. And then you have to do the research. You have to put it into practice, or use trial and error if it's safe for you to do so. And gradually you gain the knowledge, you gain the experience. That's how it's supposed to work. And then that's how you develop not only the confidence, but the competence as well. And you develop true confidence. Not just acting like you're confident. But this is exactly what narcissists do, and this is how they're incapable of managing their lives, let alone another person's life. And that's how, when you're dealing with a narcissist, you're never in safe hands. You're not in safe hands when you're dealing with them. And this is why they cannot be trusted with anything of value. It's essentially the same thing as giving a $100 bill to a toddler and then leaving them alone with it for 5 minutes, expecting that when you come back, it's going to be in the same condition as how you left it. It's not. And that's not because the narcissist has, or what you have, it isn't that great, it isn't that valuable, and the narcissist has so much more. At least then, there could be some logic to it. Like if the narcissist is a billionaire and you give them a $100 bill, you come back and then they've just torn it up. And then they're like, oh, don't worry about that. Then it makes sense. But that's not what we're talking about with them. They can't be trusted with anything of value. Not only because they don't know how to manage things, they're incompetent, but also because they don't have anything of value in order to correct or replace anything that they've destroyed. This makes them very dangerous. I don't see anything of value. It intimidates them, it overpowers them, it makes them feel inferior. They destroy valuable things. They don't want anything to threaten their false sense of superiority. They don't want anything to be better than them. That's the last thing they want. But that's exactly what we want. Of course, we want things to be better than us. Of course, we want things to be better for the future generations. Of course we want that. But that's not what narcissists want. They want to be the best, and they want to be the best forever. And they don't want anyone to ever forget them. They want to be remembered. They want to be known as the person who conquered, who won. And they don't want there to be any successor. They don't want anything to come after them. They want to be the one. They want to be the one who finished it, and they want it to end there and then stop, and then nothing more. That's how they want it to be. And it's just unrealistic. Things never work out that way. Because of course, if one person reached a certain level at a certain age, then the next person can learn from that person, and they could achieve that in half the time. That's just how it's supposed to be. So it's unrealistic, it's false, and this is why we experience so many problems with them. Because they just can't accept that. And it's never been a concept that I could relate to personally, because although I understand it, but the way they see it is like maybe they spent a long time putting in a certain amount of work into achieving something, and then for someone else to come in and do less work and achieve more, it takes the spotlight away from them. But then the right way to look at it is that you motivate and inspire people. You influence them, they learn from you, and that's a part of your work as well. If that is that you've improved things for people. But then even for them, then it's egotistical, and it's like They have to take credit for your success. They own you. And without without them, you just wouldn't even exist. Because again, it's that intimidation. They feel overpowered. So it always comes back to that. Their ego is a big problem. Honestly, I would say that their ego destroys everything for them. If I wanted to fix a narcissist, if I wanted them to follow the correct path, I would say to them, just drop your ego. Just let it go. Stop having so much pride. I mean, that's all they really have to do. Considering that they target people who are better than them. This is the whole point. I mean, if you're around people who are less than you, you want to keep your ego intact. Otherwise, you're going to get destroyed. They're going to ruin you. But when you're targeting someone who's better than you, someone who you want to take care of you, someone who's more successful, someone who can give you a better life, then you've got to drop your ego so that they can then guide you in the right direction. But of course, as we know, that's something they don't want to do, and they hold on to their ego, and then in the end they end up destroying their own lives. And not only their own lives, they end up destroying the person they're with, because that person knew what they were doing. They knew how to manage things, they were very confident. You knew what to do. And again, that's why they targeted you, because you knew what to do. You were very sure about yourself. You had high self-esteem. You had that self-love. You were resilient. And that's what they wanted, because those are the qualities that they're missing. So they target you because of the qualities that they're missing in themselves. Well, as for us, it's the opposite. As we know, I mean, we target people. We don't target people, but we get involved with people who we assume have similar qualities to us. And that's how they mirror us. They act like they're kind, they're compassionate, they're hardworking, they're disciplined, and they're going to take care of us just as we take care of them. They act that way because they must understand that for us it's different, because we're genuine, we're authentic, we're sincere. So we're looking for people who have things in common, things who share our qualities and characteristics. And that's why they mirror us. That's why they act like they act like there's like this connection there. Well, as for them, because they're predators, they're looking for the opposite of themselves. They're looking for people who are good, who are strong, resilient, regulated, everything that they're not. So it's the opposite for them. And again, that's how you know they're going to struggle without you. Anita Sue says they try to destroy your spirit. That's right, they will try to destroy anything that they don't have. Or even things that you have. Even things that they have, but they're not satisfied with it. Because here's the thing. Honestly, if they had something and they were satisfied with it, they wouldn't care if you got it. It wouldn't bother them. Because they're getting it as well, and they're quite happy with it. The problem comes in when they don't have something, or they have it but they can't get the same fulfillment from it. That's when they seek to destroy it. So as with trying to destroy your spirit, it's either because they don't have a spirit, they don't have a soul, or they can't get the same fulfillment from that as we can. And that's often why people sell their souls, because they can't find fulfillment in it. And there could be many reasons for that, but that's for another video. Polly Mason says, my body doesn't feel right around him. I know I'm starting to get my words wrong now. Starting to develop a sense of dizziness. We're getting to that point of the video. My mind is starting to destabilize, breaking out of reality. Pauline Mason says, my body doesn't feel right around him. Your body doesn't feel right around him. It won't feel right because honestly, they're of a different level of consciousness. They're in a different world entirely. They've constructed a protective self and a fake world to protect themselves and to protect their fragile, dysfunctional ego. And that's how they have to constantly keep you walking on eggshells. They have to shame you. And they also have to train you and put you in a position where you feel very uncomfortable, you feel very guilty about ever leaving them in a position where they may feel humiliated or shamed, or just to protect themselves. So of course for you, it's not going to feel right. It's not going to feel right because it's not natural. It's not how things are meant to play out. It's not how things are supposed to be. And well, for you, you want something real. It's never going to be real with them. They got to have the false self. It's either they got the false self or they just don't feel good about themselves. Apologize for the noise again. Bombardier says, let's see your eyes. I don't want to remove the shades because I'm like that guy from the X-Men. If I take the shades off, the lasers will start coming out my eyes. But yeah, you're never going to feel comfortable around them because for you, you just want to put all of the pieces together, complete the puzzle, construct reality. For them, they just want to take all of the pieces apart. For them, it's like the puzzle was there, it was already completed. It's like, come on, let's just throw this board up in the air. Just put all of the puzzle pieces everywhere. Let this be our life. Let everything be muddled, confusing, because that benefits them. That's why. And honestly, you try and put the puzzle pieces together. You try to complete the puzzle. You try to make sense of it. Now there's a problem with you. Now there's something wrong with you for even noticing that pieces were missing from that puzzle. Because they do not ever want that puzzle to be put back together. It will not look good on them. Mr. Gu says you make sense practically every time you open your channel, and you help me to make sense of years of hell. I'm very glad that I could do that for Gu, Mr. Gu. Anita Sue says, I can relate to what you're saying. Very glad to hear that, Anita. Shani says they will waste years of your life. I mean, that's definitely one way of looking at it. And yeah, I mean, definitely you could be doing other things with your life instead of just making it all about them and what they want things to be. But also, some of the most inspiring, creative, productive people in this world were abused. They were victims. So we can also turn it into something as well. And of course, narcissists will use that as an excuse to justify abuse and say, all right, it worked well for you. Now it's time for me to get my rocks off. But actually, it doesn't always work out that way. Some people do get destroyed. They do actually just waste years of their life. But many of us, we can turn it into something. And that's what this channel has become about. It's to show you that yes, while I may have been abused, I was the victim of child sexual abuse on many occasions. I accept that. And I've been abused throughout my life. But it just shows that that didn't have to define the rest of my life. And just look at me now. Now I have so many subscribers, views on YouTube. I've inspired millions of people around the world. I've been traveling the world for the last 5 years. I've earned an income from this. And I'm doing well for myself. I'm taking good care of myself. So it shows that just because you've been abused, just because you've been hurt, you've been harmed, that doesn't mean that you've wasted your life. That doesn't mean that it's all over for you. And that's how I'd like to stand here as a model, to show that hard work does pay off. Because it's true. It's all just about how you look at it, how you choose to frame it. Do you choose to look at it as though now it's all over for you after what you went through? Or have you got that self-belief, that resilience? And even if you haven't, you can develop it. The narcissist will give up on you because they've given up on themselves a long time ago. But that doesn't mean that you have to give up on yourself. Real Deal Prime says, copy your empathy to use as their own. Yeah, they will copy your empathy, but in all honesty, they don't really care about it because their family and friends, there's no empathy there. They don't care about each other. And you can see that if you look at them and how everything's just so fake with them. So they don't really care about it other than to use it to manipulate new sources of supply. But even then, they just don't really need it because after they leave you, they might just seek out a grandiose narcissist if they can find one. And there's just no need for empathy there. It's all just superficial. There's no connection. So that's really just more for you. It's not for anyone else. They just mirror it back to you to make you think that they've changed. And just as quick as they change, they then change right back. Real Dean Prime says chessboard, and they move all the pieces. Yeah, they will move the pieces when you aren't looking. Or they will move the pieces right in front of you and tell you that they didn't just move the pieces, because their entire life is a lie. They're in a false reality. They live in a world where 1 + 1 couldn't equal 3. They live in a world where anything could just be anything. They just make it up as they go along, and they call that life. There's no system, no standards of how they should live. And this is, this rarely ever happens, but even though, yes, they will move the pieces on the board, even right in front of your eyes, and they will gaslight you. Now they'll create all of these new rules. Even if somehow you still win the game, even though it's practically impossible, because they're moving all of the pieces around and they're changing the rules of the game. But even if somehow you still win, then they'll just flip the board. They'll flip the board on their own game, on their own creation. And that's how we say there is no winning with a narcissist. The narcissist will just blow everything up. They'll even take themselves out. But honestly, I know we're talking about how the narcissist will struggle without us. But yeah, I mean, we were struggling with them. When you're around these narcissists, you're just putting up with them. You're just tolerating them. It's not really what you want in your life once you've realized what they're like. And you just want to get rid of them. And that can often be when they won't leave you alone. As long as they can leave you in a state where you just give up on yourself and you don't realize just how wonderful you are and all of these great assets that you have. As long as you don't have an awareness of that, they can just leave you alone. They're not really too bothered about it, but when you're aware of it, they're very jealous. And they know you're going to do better without them then. But yeah, they're definitely not good company. They're not people you want to be around. They're people who can't take care of themselves. And because they can't take care of themselves, they can't take care of anyone else. I mean, just think about it. They can't even manage simple things. I mean, just the most basic things, the basic stages of managing your own life. It starts with your mental and emotional health. Without that, how can you manage anything else? And just think about it. If you think about pilots or the astronauts who fly into space, how could they possibly achieve that if they had poor mental health and they couldn't manage their own emotions? They would never accomplish anything. And that's how it is with these narcissists. They can't even manage their own minds. And that's how they just destroy everything around them, because it all begins within. You've got to master yourself first. You've got to master your own body, your own mind, before you can then move on and master things outside of you. And this is how they just destroy everything. Everything they get around, they destroy it. Because their physical being, their body, their minds, it's not sufficient enough. It's not adequate. It's not of a high enough standard to be around, to sustain anything. But then also we have to consider that their mental state, their condition, it may be satisfactory for someone else, but it's not good enough to be around you. It's not good enough to be on your level. It will only bring you down. And what they really need to do is they need to go off, work on their mental and emotional health, seek therapy, just work on themselves. And of course, they're not going to do that. They're not going to accept that something is seriously wrong with them. And that's how they end up wasting their entire lives. Because honestly, that is the best thing that you can do. None of us are perfect, and the best thing that we can do is look at ourselves, take responsibility, and make things better. Because that's what I had to do. 6 years ago, I was looking at myself and thinking I could be better in so many ways. I could be better at managing my emotions, being more disciplined, and I took the steps to achieve that. Instead of just dumping it onto someone else, trauma dumping. But honestly, that's what these people will always do for the rest of their lives. They will never have that epiphany. They will never reach that level of consciousness. They will never be able to do that. It will never be possible for the majority of them. They will never figure it out. They will never get it. Pauline Mason asks, why does he always say, I love you? I feel like it's not true and it's just said without meaning. Listen, when they do all of these things, when they show this fake empathy, and they act so loving, kind and caring, that's got nothing to do with them. It reveals nothing about their character. And everything they display to you, it just tells you everything you need to know about yourself. Because that's all they can do is mirror you. So they're just revealing to you what you're like. And sometimes this could be in a good way, sometimes it could be bad. Sometimes they learn negative things from us. So the narcissist is essentially a mirror. They don't generate anything from within. And that's not to say that they learn everything from you. They learn things from other people as well. But nothing comes from inside of them. They can learn things from other narcissists who learn things from other narcissists. And they all just learn from each other. It's contagious. But it's all just programming. They have nothing authentic. Shani says we all have some kind of childhood trauma. Being a bad person is a choice. I had to cut out the naughty word there. You're right, we all do have some form of childhood trauma. But there are different degrees, different extremes of it. And, just being born into this world, that's traumatic in itself. And that's why when you see a newborn baby, I was actually fortunate enough to see my own daughter being born. But yeah, when you see a baby being born, if the baby doesn't cry, then there's a problem. It's normal for them to cry. And when they're being born, they're experiencing trauma. So they're traumatized from the very beginning. And it's just a normal part of life. And, many people, they get this wrong. It's not, you're not just meant to go through life and have no blunders, no ups and downs, and everything's just supposed to be smooth your entire life. That's the worst thing that can happen. Life is not meant to be that way. If that happens, then you have no experience. You're not learning anything. You learn more from your failures than you do from your success. So trauma, yeah, that's a part of life. We all have to go through it. We all have to experience pain and suffering. The important thing is not so much what happens to you, but how you deal with it. I think there's a quote, something like, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. So, yeah, we go through things, we experience traumas, but then what happens afterwards? Do we accept it? Do we take the steps to heal from it? That's the important part. That's what counts. And that's how you know that anyone who stops you from doing that, anyone who tries to hold you back from healing yourself, they're going to remain that way for the rest of their lives. They're going to remain stuck, traumatized, and also hating their own trauma, denying it, suppressing it, acting like it isn't there, and just going on and on to be traumatized even more, while just acting like everything's fine. And honestly, I've been through that as well, and it is a miserable existence. It's not a good way to be. I'm going to come over here because I know there's a lot of talking in the background, a lot of noise. And this area has now got quiet again. It's pretty much wherever I go, people will gather around. And the latest trend these days is all about pointing fingers and waving hands everywhere. It's difficult to get it on camera because it's very sudden. But it's all just about getting you to disconnect from yourself. That's pretty much everything that narcissists want to do because they're just sore losers. They can't accept that you're better. You're just a better person than they are. And that's why they got to get you to disconnect from yourself by making you focus on them. And you got to think, knowing that they don't have your best interest in mind, if they thought they were any good, they would not want you focusing on them. And that's how you know that even they know that they're absolute garbage. And they really are garbage. And I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad in saying that as well, because it's like, if you're not, then actually do something. Instead of just living a lie, instead of just manipulating people, why not just actually do it? Why not actually become something? And I know a lot of people are gathering over here now as well. But I was going quite on the opposite side. I got a feeling it's going to be like this quite a lot now towards the end. But honestly, there is nothing that I can do. There is nowhere I can go. As you know, even when I'm in the hotel room, there's always banging from the ceiling, as I posted on my Instagram. And there's always like some kind of renovation, drills in the background, doors slamming. There's just always a lot of noise. Because if there's one thing they want, it's for you to disconnect from yourself. For them, it's very unfair. It's like, how do you get to be that and they got to be them? They hate it. Honestly, if they thought you're that bad, if they thought you're not that great, they would just leave you to it. They'd just be like, all right, you take that. You take your body, you take your mind, and you go off, and let's see what happens. Let's see what you do with it. And then knowing that they're so great, they're like, all right, we'll take ourselves over here. And you go that way, we go this way. Never happens though, does it? They've got to intervene, they've got to sabotage you, and they've got to act like there's something, they've got to prove themselves to you, but never actually doing anything. Because deep down they know all too well how things actually are. And deep down they just hate themselves. They do not like themselves at all. It's self-hatred, it's shame. And that's what they've got to give to you, is hate, shame. They deflect it onto you because that's all that they've got to give. They cannot give you something that they do not have. Just like if you squeeze an orange, you're going to get orange juice. You're not going to get apple juice out of an orange. And just the same, if you squeeze a narcissist, if you squeeze an angry person, you're going to get anger. You're going to get their narcissism. And it doesn't matter how you treat them, how much you try to love them, you're still going to get that anger. You're still going to get that narcissism. Because that's all that they've got to give. So there's not really anything that we can do about that. LP Gorthia says they latch on to you and gaslight you when they need your resources and attention, then gaslight themselves when it's time to discard you. They resort to extreme aggression if you shatter the delusions. Well said, LP Gorthia. And isn't that exactly what they do? Because it's all just a delusion to them. They live in a false reality. And they don't ever want to wake up. As for us, it's like the last thing we want to do is remain asleep. We want to wake up. They want to stay asleep for the rest of their lives. Because their dream world, their fantasy, they see it as though it's better than their reality is ever going to be. Well, as for me, I know that no matter what dream I come up with in my mind, I can create a far better reality. And, you know, that's how everything you see in this world, it doesn't matter what it is. If we look at this, let me just show you this park. And you see these buildings. And let's just take these, the towers as an example. So before these towers were built, they had a plan, an architecture made a drawing of the buildings. And of course, before the drawing was created, it started as a vision an image in someone's mind. And it's the same with anything you see in this world today. It all started with an image in someone's mind, a vision. Because it's our thoughts and our beliefs that then create our reality. And this is the problem that narcissists have, because their thoughts and beliefs, they do create their reality. And they pull other people into this reality as well. The problem is, they haven't got the competence to go along with it. So they end up creating this fabricated world that other people, normal people, can't see what they see. They can't see it. And this is why they have to entrain you, they have to brainwash you, they have to try and get you to see things the way that they see them. Because they just want to live in this delusion. They want to remain in this fantasy, believing that they are something when they're actually just, they're nothing. And deep down they know that. Some of them, they will come out and tell you that as well. And that's why if anyone comes along and tries to challenge it, then they want nothing to do with that person. Because they want to remain in denial. I was really immersed in sharing that with you, though, so much that I couldn't even, I wasn't even really paying attention to that argument behind me. But honestly, I will say that, you know, with all of this chaos around me, all of these problems, all of these irritating people that I have to deal with every day, all of these people that I do not want to be around, all of these people that I do not want anything to deal with, as I do constantly mention in every video, to the point where many of you must get sick of me saying it. And yet, many people are still so delusional that they still just can't get the picture and just leave me alone. But yeah, despite all of that, I'm so grateful for all of you. Honestly, every time I come on here and I read your comments, and even in the live chat as well, seeing your questions, seeing people getting this information, learning more, educating themselves, protecting themselves, nothing makes me happier than that. It lets me know that I'm doing the right thing, it validates me, and it lets me know that I'm not alone. So, yeah, I mean, although most people, as I always harp on about, they are fake, inauthentic, they're frauds, con artists, manipulators, they're just overall bad people, harmful people. It's just great when I get on here because it reminds me that some people aren't that way. Some people are real. Some people, they genuinely want to grow. And they take life seriously. And it's great to see that. And honestly, I used to think that I was such a rare person and that there wasn't really anyone else like me. But then it's kind of funny how I then ended up with Now 188,000 subscribers. So it's quite funny when you think about it. And I know it was likely a similar experience for you. They make you feel like you're so different, you're so weird, you're so crazy. It's like, why didn't you just follow everyone else, follow the trends, follow what everyone else is doing? All of this nonsense, all of this garbage. I know you were probably feeling that way as well, as though you're alone. And then you find these online communities and it's like, no. It looks like a lot of other people have to put up with this shit. A lot of other people don't want to deal with it. A lot of people, they don't like these people because they're harmful, they're disgusting. And, you know, it's good to see that. Really happy to see that. It's good to see. It's good to see that we're not alone. But actually, I myself, I was always content with being alone. Especially as a child, I was okay with that. And it's funny, a lot of people, they always wanted to be friends with me. But I just wasn't really about it. I was just more interested in just being on my own, hiking in the woods, going to the beach. Because for me, I was always more of a deep thinker. I always had more of an analytical mind. I was always interested more in what's beneath the surface, rather than just what we see on the outside. And of course, then later on, I realized that then became a problem. It's that people don't like it when you look at their insides. So that alienated me, and then it made me feel like I'm alone. But it's good to see that other people are like this. So I no longer feel like I'm just the hunchback of Notre Dame. So Cross Warrior 7 for the Lord Jesus says the best psychologist is God. God is love. Honestly, you know, although I myself, I do consider myself to be a believer, I do believe in God, I don't think it's helpful to bring God into psychology, because psychologists, they understand the mind. They know the brain very well, and they can even link your brain up to a machine and tell you the exact part of your brain that lights up when you feel as though you're having these spiritual experiences. So God has nothing to do with the mind. God has nothing to do with the brain. If there was a link there, then the scientists would have discovered that by now. So I don't think it's helpful to bring God into psychology. I mean, sometimes I do talk about the spiritual aspects of narcissism, but as you know, I like to keep that separate with my Chosen One videos, because it is separate. And yeah, we just can't bring God into psychology. It's just two separate things. And I think it's good to have that distinction there. Boundaries are helpful. Boundaries have always been important to me. So it's good to have that separation where it's like, this is God, this is spirituality, and then this is psychology. And the two things do not have to mix. And honestly, I think what happens is when people want to mix God and psychology, or God and science, or even God and the universe, when they want to mix all of these things together, that actually reveals a lot of insecurity. It reveals a lack of faith, from what I've discovered. It's like you're trying to make sense of it, or you're trying to reinterpret things from the holy books in order for it to fit in with what we now know about psychology, or what we know now about science and space. Which again, it's like it reveals a lack of faith, because it just changes. So new information comes up, new research, and then your beliefs about it just change, although people don't actually admit that the beliefs have changed. When you look at it, that's really what it is. But again, I'm not against God, and I'm not an atheist. I've never said that I am. I've never said that in my entire life. So don't take that out of context. John Wax says, where did you get your haircut? You know, I never talk about it, my hair and stuff, but I didn't even want this haircut. I went to a hairdresser's here in Malaysia, and it's like he already had it in his mind how he wanted me to be for him. So he just cut my hair a certain way, he thinned it out in the middle, and honestly, I didn't even want it to look this way. How I wanted it to look was more like how I had it before, a few months ago. And it was more like longer on the sides, because it doesn't look too good when it's short on the sides, I think. It just doesn't look natural that way. But yeah, that's my preference, and you know, that was actually also how it was at the beginning of the channel when I first began making these live videos. The colour of my hair was not how I wanted it to be. I went to a salon in the UK and I wanted to dye my hair blonde, because I've always been interested in just colouring my hair. Actually, when I was just 13 years old, I remember I used my sister's purple hair dye. So I always enjoyed experimenting with it. But yeah, even at the beginning of the channel, in my earliest live videos, the salon in the UK, they dyed my hair orange, and I wanted blonde, but you can clearly see it's more of an orange colour. So I do have to deal with that a lot as well. There is just a lot of intimidation. A lot of people, they do feel inferior to me, and honestly I can see why. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that as well. Like where they just want to mess things up for you, they want to ruin your hair. Or maybe they will just deliberately, like you go to a bar or something and they deliberately just spill a drink on your new shoes. I've experienced all of that. Or they steal your stuff, they do it deliberately because they want to be you. They wish they were you. They do not accept themselves. If they accept themselves, then they would just accept themselves. And if they accept themselves, then they would accept you. I've got so much energy today because I actually enjoyed one of these, this passion fruit juice. And this is what happens when I have sugar. And this is why I typically avoid sugar, so that I'm not too energetic. Because even now at the age of 35, going to be 36 in 3 months, I still have more energy than a 10-year-old child. What's all this about singing? Constance says the singing voice. Anita Sue says, I think the chanting sounds peaceful. Is this a song request? Everyone just wants me to get on cue and start singing. When is Narc Survivor going to sing us a song? I remember actually another YouTuber that was watching. He would always have these, he would do these live videos where he's got like some disco ball and the lights in the background. And then it's like all of this 80s music playing. And he's just like dancing and singing with a microphone. It looked like fun though. Cross Warrior 7 for the Lord Jesus says, Tim, it's not masculine to be emotionless, but it is masculine to not let emotions control you. Very well said. And a good woman will respect that. They will respect your emotional control. And actually, the women who want you to be emotional, they tend to be more masculine themselves. So it's like they want to be stoic, they want to be non-reactive, but then they want to make you react. I mean, that's just what masculine women do. And you know, if you're a masculine woman watching this, that's okay too. I mean, I don't agree with it myself, but I respect everyone. As long as they're not harming anyone, and to me that's okay, it's fine. Everyone is welcome here on my channel. As long as you're not a hater or an abuser or an active criminal. But otherwise, whoever you are, as long as you're working on yourself, you're improving yourself, regardless of who you are, regardless of what you've done in the past, as long as you're trying to move things in the right direction, you're genuinely trying to get better, you're welcome in my community. Because that's what I'm about. And that's what I want for myself. Christina Jacobson says, as they get older, they are bitter, and we are 10 times better and living our best lives. That's it, and that's why they keep tabs on you. That's why they're always watching you, monitoring you. That's why they're always coming after you, hoovering you, because they know you're going to get better with time. Of course, they're aware of that. And that's why they don't give you any closure. They want to leave the door open so they can come back later on. Or at least they think they can come back. But what you got to do is just keep that door shut, bolt it shut, as Zion likes to say in his videos. Tactics TV says, why would you want to be around a psycho, not me? I mean, that's literally the point that it gets to. It's like, initially they try and manipulate you, they try and make you think that they're a good person, and then the mask comes off and you see what they are, you see what you're dealing with, and then they're still trying to convince you, they're still trying to glorify themselves. And many of us, we mistakenly perceive it as though, why are you glorifying this, these psychopathic behaviors? Why are you so delusional that you think that this could lead to anything good? But then actually, we're not perceiving it the way that they want us to perceive it. So it's having a different effect to what was initially intended. And what's happening is that we're still remembering what they're really like when they're giving us mistaken impressions and trying to manipulate us. So it's not so much that they're trying to encourage it or glorify it. You know, sometimes they just, you know, they can't control their emotions. And then those emotions then lead to actions, behaviors, they blow up, they explode. And then they just want to move on from that then. They don't act like that was them now there's something else. Fair enough. That could happen. Maybe after a period of a few months or several years. But typically, that doesn't happen like a few minutes or the next day. They're still that same person. But you have to remember they don't have an identity. They're fake, so they literally think that they can just do something and then a few minutes later, you have to see them as something else. Christina Jacobson says it's so hilarious when you see them throw a tantrum. I just laugh when I see a grown-ass adult doing it. Yeah, it's just weird. I mean, when it's someone who's like younger, innocent and less aware, then it's kind of cute. But when they do it, and you know that there's this duality, this duplicity to it, then it's just sick. It's just weird. Because you know that they're trying to manipulate you. And there's a big difference between that. Alchemist Lab says this guy is so damaged. Thanks for that, Alchemist Lab. But you know, I have actually taken the time and done the work over the last 6.5 years to get to where I am today. And, you know, I'm not coming on here to say that I'm perfectly healed and that I'm exactly where I want to be. For me, the work goes on every day and it never ends. This is a lifelong journey for me. So, but honestly, that's something that we all have to accept. And, you know, this is the problem with narcissists. You say that to a narcissist. You say to them, when they're lashing out at you, when they're insulting you, you tell them that they're damaged and watch how they react. They will go crazy. They will attack you. Because they just can't look at themselves and accept that it is them. They've got too much pride, too much ego. They've got to be the best, they've got to win. And that's why they're going to be messed up, they're going to be damaged for the rest of their lives because of that very reason. Well, as for us, I mean, honestly, that's the best thing that you can say to yourself following a relationship with a narcissist, is to just accept it, the radical acceptance, and just look in the mirror and say, yeah, that affected me, that damaged me, that hurt me, that destroyed me. And then from that acceptance, you can then move past it. Because of course, you don't want to stay stuck as a victim for the rest of your life and just never moving on. You have to then gradually move on, process the emotions, heal from it. And yeah, then you can undamage yourself, you can get better. But this is why most people in this world are damaged, and they will remain damaged for the rest of their lives because they don't want to accept it. They can't deal with the shame. They can't deal with that hit to their ego, feeling like something's wrong with them. And honestly, that's the best thing that you can do, because none of us are perfect. The best thing we can do is just accept, yes, we can improve. Of course, doesn't mean that every minute of every day for the rest of your life, you just have to feel like you're a horrible person or that you can't do anything right. I mean, you know, that's not going to help as well. Toriamato says most women who do not have a mate or children eventually begin to develop serious psychological injuries and damages of human spirit. Think the lonely old cat lady newspaper on the windows. I personally, I do believe that a woman's role is to be a mother, a wife, to be traditional, and now it's gone the other way with feminism. It's more about focusing on their career. Don't worry about the marriage, the children. Leave that until later, until they get older. I'm cornered to you now. Wherever I go, I'm kind of surrounded. But that typically happens wherever I go in the world. Sometimes I wonder if I went into outer space, I'd probably have spaceships coming after me. But yeah, I do believe that women should be traditional. They should get married, they should have children. And for me, as I mentioned in a recent video, I think it's best for girls at a younger age, perhaps when they're teenagers, because as we know, when most girls, they get to 18 years of age, sometimes as young as 16, what do? They start hanging around the wrong people, drinking alcohol, going to clubs, sleeping around, doing all of the wrong things. They're not even focused on their studies. They're not even focused on their careers. They act like they are, but they're not. So this is why I personally believe that girls should get married at a younger age, perhaps when they're teenagers. Also to the right type of man, not just anyone, but someone who, again, can manage themselves, can manage their own mental and emotional health, can manage their lives. They've got direction, they know where they're going. So that's my personal belief on that. Doesn't mean that everyone has to agree with it, of course. We don't all have to be exactly the same. But that's what I believe based on the current state of the world today. Because clearly what we're doing now is not working. Things aren't going the way that we want them to go. Honestly, most women in the world today, they just end up with losers. They're never thinking about maybe picking someone with a good education, who's been to a good school, someone who actually cares about themselves, someone who's not just doing the wrong things. And they just end up with losers, bums, criminals. And many of you wonder why. You're looking at it like, why is this innocent little girl going off with this this creep, this drug dealer? But actually, you're seeing it wrong. Like attracts like, and they're actually the same. It's just they give you this deceptive image of themselves. To True the Liberator says, God created your mind. He is the greatest intelligence. You know, I thank God for my mind every day. It's amazing, you know, how many people need my mind, and also how many people are dependent on it. Because clearly a lot of people in this world, they can't think of themselves, they have no empathy. They have no life, they have no passion inside of them. But then also I can use my experiences that I've experienced with my mind. I can experience it and use it to help so many people online as well. So yeah, I mean, the mind is very helpful, very useful, very thankful for it. But also, hate to burst anyone's bubble, But the reality is that our entire life experience is nothing more than electrical signals that run to and from the brain. So everything just comes from the brain. However, the minds, we don't know too much about the minds. We don't know too much about consciousness. And, we are alive at a very interesting time in the world today. So who knows where technology will go and where our understanding of the mind and the consciousness and how that links us, how that connects us to the universe as a whole. Who knows how the study, the research and the understanding of that will pan out into the future. But I myself, I've always been saying for day one that our level of consciousness is connected to a much greater and a more true reality. And many of you, if you were watching my earlier videos, and especially on my other channel, you may remember that. And even to this day, I still believe in that. I still believe that our level of consciousness does connect us to a greater reality. And I myself, I do believe that I do have a higher self. And I'm constantly receiving a download from another star system. And that's how, even when I'm being gang stalked, smeared, emotionally and mentally battered all over the place, it doesn't even matter, it doesn't affect me. I'm still able to think. I didn't even have to think about what I'm saying. I'm not even having to think about what I'm going to say before I say it. It just flows naturally. Because I genuinely believe that I do receive a download from some other form of consciousness. And I think this was always that way. I mean, I always had a lot of questions when I was younger. Everyone else, they were playing with their the Barbie dolls, their action men. And I was thinking about something else. I was thinking more about the universe, the planets, the stars. And a lot of times I do recall, as a child, I would lay down, often on the grass, on my back, and I would just look up at the sky. And usually there wouldn't be any clouds in the sky, it would be a blue sky. I would look up at the sky, I would feel a lot more connected. I would feel like I do not belong to this world. And honestly, I've always felt detached from this world. I've always felt like this world is not my home. But with time, I began to accept it. I began to accept that this is just how it is. That at least for now, this world is our home. And I guess it doesn't have to mean that we just leave this place and then we return to the stars. We never come back again. Maybe we do in fact take what we have learned and then we come back to learn some more. And maybe we do come back at a different time. And I've been watching videos as well of what people think the world will be like in a few decades, a few centuries, a few thousand years. And honestly, it looks pretty good. And I wouldn't mind returning to the earth in 100 years, in 1,000 years, and even after that. Because I think it'd be interesting to see how technology goes, and also to see if people manage to sort out their problems. But also, I believe that there is going to be there's going to be far worse things to come. I mean, we think that what we're dealing with now is the be-all and end-all. Other people, other civilizations, if you can call them that. We think that these are our greatest threats, but actually there's other things that can happen now where it's like there could be more viruses, and there's also the potential threat of artificial intelligence. There may also be other aliens who could pose a very serious threat to us. So, even if we do, I mean, I'm sure we do have the opportunity to return if we want to. I mean, you can do whatever you want. But it doesn't mean that it's just going to be smooth sailing. There are going to be other threats, and these threats may be far greater, far more harmful than just other mere humans. But then also, that may be what we need. That may be what brings us more together. If it is just a genuine attempt to protect ourselves. Because of course, if it's not, if it is another alien civilization, and they're not really a threat to us, but instead we're just attacking them for their resources, then of course that's not going to bring us together. It's going to bring us further apart, and we're going to feel bad about it. Hopefully humans will overcome that, their greed, and they think it's okay to exploit other people, other civilizations. Who knows? I mean, but honestly, I think it will be a long time. I think it will be a long time until most people do reach that level of consciousness and awareness. Uh, Cross Warrior 7 says the earth is not flat. Come on. You know, I used to be the same way. I used to laugh at flat earthers. I used to think, how could they not know? How could they not think that this earth is actually round? And you know, it's an interesting thing because actually everything you think is real, and I've always thought this way. It may have been the Matrix that influenced me as a child, but I've been thinking this way for a very long time. And whatever you think is real, whatever you think is true in this world, in your experience, whatever you think is right, how do you know that that is right? How do you know that that is real? Just because you have a brain and you have this ability to think, that doesn't mean that whatever you think is right and whatever you think is real. That doesn't mean that at all. Because everything is actually, it's just electrical signals going to and from the brain. So you take the brain away and then what have you got? It's all dependent on your brain. And what if we took someone else's brain from a different planet and maybe they experience something completely different? They don't see things the way that you do. So who's right and who's wrong? And that's when we should realize that this is all because of the ego. This is all because of a need to feel important, when the reality that may be is that maybe our brains and what we think, what we believe is not so important after all. And that is the conclusion that we may come to if we connect to our soul. So it's an interesting concept, and it is backed up by science. That everything is just the result of the brain. And what's actually out there, I mean, even what you see, it's just reflections of light that hits off the back of the eye, the retina. That's all that it is. It's almost like a camera. And the brain is just a computer. Almost like a machine, a robot. And even everything in this universe is mathematics. It's a program. Many people believe that it's all a simulation. So, and I'm not saying that I know what's out there. I'm not saying I know what's really there. I mean, who knows what is there? I mean, who knows what is here? Is this grass real? Are these people real? These buildings? The sky? All I do know is that I feel real. Because I can control my own mind. I can think whatever I like. I've come up with all of these different concepts, all of these different ideas. So I see it as though I do have the free will to make my own decisions. And for that reason, I believe that I am real. But how do I know? Tell me, how do I know that other people are having this same experience that I'm having in my mind? How would we know? We don't know. How could we ever know? How could you know that other people have that same experience of thinking and processing? And, you know, I think the best way to know, what really gives that away at least, is just look at their actions. Are they dysregulated? How's their mental health? Can they control themselves? Are they disciplined? If they're not, then that reveals they're having a different internal experience, possibly almost no internal experience at all. Because otherwise, why is all of that manifested outwardly? And if it was manifested outwardly, it would be a form of connection, empathy. So yeah, it's very interesting, and it's something that really fascinates me. It really does. I think about it a lot. And to me, everything just seems so crazy. I look at the world and I think, all of these people, and just the way people just kind of go along with it. They act like everything's okay. They go to clubs, parties, they have families. And it's like, doesn't anyone even think about this? Doesn't anyone even think about what actually is this? What is this world? What is actually out there? And what are we really experiencing? As far as we do know, there's light that's being reflected off our eyes. And that then produces this visual experience. And the sound, as far as we know, there is some kind of sound, but our brains make sense of it. And a lot of it, it's based on agreeance. So we all agree on something. We all agree that, like the colors, like you see everyone wearing yellow over there, that's yellow. And like these t-shirts are green, all the different colors, the grass is green, the sky is supposed to be blue, but now it's cloudy. But yeah, we all agree on this. That doesn't mean that any of this is true. It doesn't mean that any of this is real. We agree that it is. And that could be the same for anything. These are just things that we've been taught. So what is actually real? And that's a very difficult question to answer, because in any way that you try to answer it, you're going to make it personal. You're going to try and create meaning from it. You're going to just project your experience onto it. So some food for thought there. But for me, as you can see, I prefer to create my own meaning, my own purpose, for what I believe to be true, for what I believe to be real. And of course, I don't just live my whole life in a daze. I take life seriously. I believe things are real, are true. Because just imagine if at the end of this life we found out that it is real and that these things are meant to be important to us. What a frightening experience that would be. If your entire life you just took it as a joke and you just didn't take anything seriously, and then at the end of it you realized that was the wrong thing to do. But as for these narcissists, I mean, yeah, it's pretty clear that it is all a show for them. They don't really believe in God. They don't really believe that a God is watching, observing us. If they did, they would act very differently. And they wouldn't just be hiding things, gaslighting people. They would actually be genuine if they actually believed in a God. And that's definitely a big part of what drives my behavior. And it keeps my morals in check, is my belief in God. But honestly, even if we discovered today, even if science could prove, because up until now it can't disprove God. But even if today they could prove that there was no God, I probably wouldn't change anything about what I'm doing. Because my morals, my values are independent of God. So it's really, it's at my core. Which means that nothing and no one, no external influence is going to change my morals and my values. Because it's at my core being. Whether there's a God or not. And up until now at least, we can't disprove God. We'll also probably never be able to prove it either. Because that would just discount the whole experience of this life. I mean, what would be the point of it if you knew for a fact that there was a God? So it makes sense. It does make sense. It makes a lot of sense, and that's why I think we should be very careful. Robney OB asks, you ever eat a snail? No, I've never eaten a snail. And I'm actually a vegan, so I will never eat a snail. But even before I became a vegan, I never did, and even back then, that's just not something that I would do. Not just because they're slimy, but also just the way that they're so slow, and also how they have a shell to protect themselves. That just reveals to me that they are very vulnerable. If they have a shell and they're slow. So that would put me off for a start. But I know the French like to eat snails, escargot. Just not really my kind of thing. I'm quite happy being a vegan. Veronica K asks, do you record your lives? Of course I record my lives. How else would you be able to see them if I didn't record them? I was going to go to the gym today, but I was getting quite late, and but I have enjoyed speaking with you on here. Very interesting discussion. It's good to see these comments here in the live chat. I'm reading all of them. It's nice to see that other people kind of relate to what I'm saying, and that you also think about these things as well. Never stop questioning things. Never feel like you know everything, you figured everything out. Never think that everything is just perfect as it is. It's the worst thing you can do to yourself. Always keep learning, always keep growing, always keep asking questions. And that's just the way I am. It's the way I've always been. I've always been very curious about life. Very fascinated by different places, foods, cultures. At least until I've seen everything and figured everything out. And then I move on to something else. But yeah, I've always had that a characteristic about me, where I'm very fascinated with new things. I'm always interested in learning about people. Very fascinated with the human mind and what makes people do certain things. But actually, at least with the mind, it's not as complex as we might think it is, or as we might like it to be. And often the brain our minds just make a puzzle out of it, because it's almost like watching a movie and we don't want it to end. But that could be fun as well, fantasy. Isn't life just a dream? Isn't life just a fantasy that we have concocted in our minds? When you think about it, when you explore it, yes, in fact it is. Thanks for the donation, Sheila Ray. I appreciate all of your donations. So many comments in the live chat. I wish I could read them all. trying to read as many as I can. But yeah, you can also leave a comment underneath the video, and I do take the time every morning to read all of your comments. Doesn't matter how many there are, but there's 200-300 comments every morning. I wake up and I sit down. I spend about up to 30 minutes a day going through the comments. I've been doing that every day now for over 5 years. Well, actually, no, 6 years now. And yeah, I really enjoy reading the comments. So let me know what you thought about this video. Leave a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up as well if you found this video helpful. Hit subscribe and click all notifications, and then you will be notified when I go live again. Donations are greatly appreciated. Doesn't matter how small. You could donate to my PayPal. It is paypal.me/Narc Survivor. If you'd like to book a one-on-one, just head to my website. It is narcsurvivor.co.uk. And also you can follow me on Instagram. I'm uploading content every day from my trip last year to Taiwan. You can see all of that on there. Follow me. It is Narc Survivor YouTube on Instagram. All right. Thank you all for joining me on another Narc Survivor live video. Live here from this park in Malaysia. I appreciate you all, and I will talk to you in another live video very soon.